Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. We are thrilled to have you as well. We have our guest speaker today, Stacy O'Leary. She comes to Expert Marketing Advisors as a partner of ours, our preferred partner for all things Salesforce. She's got Quickly Consulting as well, so I'll be sure to put that out there for folks to check out Stacy's website. In the meantime, though, let me tell you a little bit more about Stacy herself. She has 5 different Salesforce certifications, which is pretty much unheard of in the industry, as well as she was a speaker at Dreamforce this last year. So we were thrilled to have Stacy as our extended team of experts and her expertise coming to the fore over the last 3 years that EMA has been around. And that's all I've got. Stacy, do you want to say hello?
Yes, good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Courtney and EMA, for hosting and setting this all up. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about Salesforce 101 for marketers. So this is really going to be for new marketers who are thinking about Salesforce or who've never used Salesforce before and are trying to get into the space and figure out what's going on and maybe why you need it, as opposed to just having something like Marketo or HubSpot or something like that. So let's jump right in and get started. So let's see, do you see the new slide here? Is that working for you? Perfect, thanks. Okay, so I think probably the #1 question we get asked at EMA when we tell people that they're going to need Salesforce is, why? That's really expensive. We're too small. We don't need that. And you might be right if you're at a little tiny startup. You've only got a couple employees. Maybe you've only got a few hundred prospects in your marketing org. You might not need it yet, but the thing about Salesforce is it's such a central platform that everybody needs it once you pass a certain point. You really can't manage a sales and marketing and service delivery business without some sort of central hub where all of your information can sit and everybody can access it and find out what's going on. What we found in companies that don't use something like this is that they're very siloed. There's a lot of lost information and translation, a lot of frustrated customers and prospects who hear one message from marketing and then the next week they hear a different message from sales. It just causes a lot of customer unhappiness, which means less money for your company. So Salesforce really fixes all of that and creates a central place where your whole kind of sales, marketing, service delivery rotates around and everyone has access to the information that they need and can see what has happened with a client and a prospect, what kind of communications they've received, what events have they attended, do they have any support cases, everything that's going on with that client. You can find out from Salesforce, and it's in one place, and it's really convenient for everyone. So that's why we always say, maybe you don't need it right now, but everybody needs it eventually. So since we're kind of talking about, sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
No worries. So we wanted to poll the audience here. We have essentially, how comfortable are you with setting up a new Salesforce org as we go into Stacy's next area of, the terminology and the acronyms and all the various ways that we recognize Salesforce versus other tools. I'm going to go ahead and push out that question. We'd like to know how comfortable you are setting up a new Salesforce org, not at all, moderate, expert, and we're looking forward to your feedback.
Thank you. So we do have an attachment that you can check out in the section here on Bright Talk. What we're going to talk a little bit about right now is Salesforce terminology and how that might be different than what you're used to in kind of a more marketing-based world. So probably if you're in marketing, you're familiar with a tool like Marketo or HubSpot or maybe Pardot. But what those all have in common is They're marketing to people, and there's really just people, right? There's only one kind of person. Salesforce is a little bit different in that we have two kinds of people. There's leads and there's contacts. And the difference being that leads could be anybody. They're just any prospect, any random person from anywhere. If they're in your database, they start out as a lead. And when a person becomes qualified, they turn into a contact. Now, a contact, when someone turns into a contact, every company does that a little bit different. You might have a different set of criteria. You might decide, at this point it becomes a contact, or at that point it becomes a contact. That doesn't really matter for the purpose of this conversation, but what is critically important for new marketers to understand is that there are two kinds of people in Salesforce, leads and contacts. And so when you're talking about integrating something like Marketo to Salesforce, you almost have to do a little bit of double work to make sure that everything syncs not only with the lead, but also with the contact record. And you want to be really careful about that and make sure that that is all done correctly. That's probably one of our biggest questions we get from people implementing Salesforce for the first time is, what is this two kinds of people? This doesn't make any sense. It does, it just takes a little bit to get used to when you're used to something like Marketo. The other thing you should know that's really important about leads and contacts is there is no going backwards. Once a lead gets converted to a contact, that's permanent. It's forever. You can't revert them. And really, the purpose, if you think about it, is a human being, once they become aware of your company, once they've interacted with you, there's no undoing with that. You don't have a time machine to go back and they forget about you and they never interacted with you. You can't go back to that point in time, and that's why you can't revert contact back to leads. So as a marketer, you just need to make sure that you know exactly what the process is when a lead should become a contact and what should happen there before you execute that. Now, in addition to leads and contacts, Salesforce has accounts and opportunities. Accounts are companies that you're doing business with or you want to do business with, and the opportunities are the deals or potential deals within those companies. Now, if you think about when you're trying to sell something or market something, you're always marketing to a person. You're not marketing to like a generic company. You have to target somebody to send your email to. So accounts and opportunities really shouldn't exist without at least one person that you're trying to sell into. We see this a lot with companies who are trying to implement ABM, account-based marketing. ABM is great and it can work really well, but what you have to remember is there has to be people at those companies. So you don't want to just create a whole bunch of accounts and opportunities in Salesforce without anyone who works there. And then finally, the other term I want to talk about is campaigns. This is a big one for marketers in Salesforce. If you're using Marketo or HubSpot, you should be familiar with campaigns already. The campaign record in Salesforce is a way to house that information about maybe a marketing program or an event that you've done. Let's say you went to Black Hat or RSA and you had a booth and you scanned a bunch of badges. The campaign record is going to be where all of those people live. So you can report on who attended that event, who was interested, did we get any potential pipeline from that event, what is my ROI? All of that is going to be right there in Salesforce ready for you. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is reports and dashboards. That's going to be all of your metrics regarding everything that you do in Salesforce. So if the data exists in Salesforce, you can report on it. You can build a dashboard that talks about all of your KPIs. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do to kind of represent how you're getting value from using Salesforce. Courtney, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, that was great. Awesome, very straightforward. My takeaway here is, essentially the terminology around all the various objects in SFDC, so leads, contacts, accounts, and sure enough, we do run into folks that are loading accounts without actual people tied to those companies. So that's not a problem. We just aim to grow the actual contacts that tie to those accounts. And that's where the ABM comes in, account-based marketing and selling. But just to wrap up, you've got leads versus contacts. Leads are folks that are within your marketing pool, with essentially your ideal buyers, but they have yet to really engage or know about you as a company. And then once those folks do become aware of your company, they convert essentially over to contacts, which is a one-way street. They don't convert backwards. Now they're tied to their account and their company, the account level on SFDC, and what more the rest of us understand is essentially the company or the business. And then, as you were saying on opportunities, the opportunities tie to the account or the company that you're selling to, because they're the ones that the business is responsible for the deal. But you can't sell an opportunity, or you can't sell a deal to a company. You have to still sell those to individuals. And that's where we really look to grow your contact database, qualified contacts. And then, so I have run into folks where I'm like, how big is your database? And sure enough, they say, 500 or 5,000, and come to find out that those are just lists of businesses that they're targeting, but they have yet to identify the people, the right folks at each of those businesses to sell to. And then the last component there, as I heard you mention, Stace, was the campaigns piece, and that's really great for marketing to track where the leads have been, what's working, what's not, what touch points the leads have engaged with you, and where your successes are, if it's a sales generated versus marketing generated, or even channel generated. And the campaigns are the activities that where your database and your prospects start engaging with you. Does that seem like a pretty decent wrap up, Stacy?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. So now that we've talked a little bit about what Salesforce is and kind of the terminology that you should be familiar with, let's talk about integrations. So this is by far, I think, probably one of the most dangerous things you can do to your Salesforce org, and you want to be extremely careful going about it, but you can't avoid it. So every Salesforce org I've worked in has been integrated with something. Everybody pretty much is integrated with a marketing platform, and then there's a lot of other tools, Discover Org, SalesLoft, Lean Data. There's a million things out there that you can add into your Salesforce org. But what's critically important about integrations is that you know exactly what's going to happen after you plug it in and turn it on. The last thing you want is to be surprised when something pops up in your org that you've never seen before, or something changes that you didn't want to change. So those are things that you need to get the install guide, study it carefully, make sure you know everything that's going to happen. We've at EMA done, I don't know, dozens, maybe hundreds of integrations, and for things like Marketo, we do them over and over again. And every single time we look at the install guide, because there could be enhancements to what you're integrating, there could be changes since the last time you did it last month, you never know. So we are always careful about going in and doing an integration and plugging things in, because you really do not want to damage what you already have, and you definitely don't want to lose any data. So you have to be extremely careful about that. But once you're ready and once you've prepared and you know everything that's going to happen, most companies make it very easy for you to integrate with Salesforce. There's typically an app on the App Exchange that you can install. Install guides are usually very easy to follow. They're going to be step-by-step where you can kind of go into Salesforce and just follow the directions. It's going to tell you if you need to add a visual first page component to your page layout, or if you need to create some custom fields that aren't included in the package, if you need to do any mappings that are not part of the package, all of that's going to be defined there, and you can follow all those steps, and it usually goes really well. We've never had a problem with doing an integration when we follow our steps carefully and make sure that everything is done and it goes really smoothly. As long as you are prepared and you know everything that is going to happen, you can keep it all clean and done properly and going really well. So, Courtney, do we have a question about what integrations we're using?
We do. It's what marketing automation tools do you use? And these are just a few of the many, but from a marketing automation perspective, this is more of your middle of funnel tool that's used for outbound emailing and tracking as well. So we've got a poll here for the audience. We'd love to know if you use MailChimp or HubSpot, Marketo, or Pardot are typically the ones that we see. I'll push that out to you guys as well. But just to reiterate, we do find so many different tools that have popped up over the last 5 to 10 years for marketing. And when we map those into Salesforce as your CRM, as we all know, the central source of truth, we find that there's tools that are great for very top of funnel. It's essentially identifying net new leads and augmenting your existing database. We find tools that are great for more nurturing, which would be, your webinar platform, your video platforms. You can even host podcasts across those. And then we also, as we push further into sort of the past nurturing and we start looking at qualifying the leads to get them over to that contact status, we often run into either HubSpot, Marketo, MailChimp, or Pardot, and that's where we build in scoring, which tracks everything as well from a sales rep's point of view. And then there's a few other ones that kind of sit in between sometimes for your BDRs or your inside sales reps. And those we often see are Outreach or SalesLoft. There's actually quite a few, but there's a handful of them. And those are really for your individual sales reps to have that high touch, very personalized outbound reach so that they can really get that MQL over tied to an opportunity. Great.
Okay.
And thank you so much for voting.
There's one more thing I want to add about integration. If you're doing a marketing platform integration like Marketo or HubSpot or Pardot, please create a user just for that integration and a custom profile. And the reason for that is you don't want to use an individual's profile or an individual's user, because then you won't be able to tell in the history who's taking the action, if it's the person actually logging in or doing something, or if it is the marketing platform, you will not be able to tell the difference. And if you bring in someone like EMA, that's going to be the first thing that we tell you to fix, is you got to separate those right now, because we cannot, there's no way for us to troubleshoot or tell what the difference is. The other thing is people leave. People, as much as we love our employees and we want them to stay forever, they're not going to stay forever. Someday we might get a new job or go somewhere else, and we don't want to be stuck with a really baked in person integration user when that person is gone. So if you're going to do an integration, particularly a huge integration like Marketo, set up a custom user and a custom profile, or else you will be in big trouble. All right, so moving on, if you've ever heard me speak before at Dreamforce or heard any of my trainings, I talk nonstop about data quality, and that's because I learned the hard way. So when it comes to data quality, you want to set this up immediately from the moment you have access to an org, hopefully from the moment the org is created. You need to decide what constitutes good data quality and enforce it right away from the beginning. For example, with leads and contacts, I always require an email address, a unique email address. And that's because you cannot market to somebody with your marketing platform if you don't know their email. Your SDRs maybe could call if you have a phone number, but the most of your marketing effort is going to be through email, and you can't do anything without that address. And you also do not want to have duplicates on your email address, because those people, if they start getting 2 emails from you that are exactly the same, you're just going to piss them off and you're going to lose prospects that way. So you don't want that either. So right at the beginning from your org, set up data quality. Require email address. Make sure you require the account name on a contact record. We see that a lot. Some stray orphan contacts, which are called private contacts in Salesforce. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's terrible and scary. So you want to make sure the account name is required on your contact records. And then you want to think about what do you need to successfully sell your company? What do you need to know about your prospects? If your company is specifically selling into certain industries, then you would probably want to ask people up front, maybe on your forms, what industry do you work in? That way you can segment your database. Maybe you need to know job titles. Maybe you need other information like the number of employees, or another big one we see is state and country location, so that we can distribute our leads out to our team correctly. So all of that information, decide what you need and what is critical to good data quality up front, and enforce it right away. Make sure you turn off quick create. Make sure you do all of those things to enforce it. That way, in a few years, you're going to have a really clean and good quality org. You won't have to do something like hire someone like me or EMA to come in and fix it. We have come into orgs where we have 10,000 leads that we don't know where they came from. Nobody knows where they came from. We've come into orgs where we have thousands of duplicates and we have to go through and merge them, or all sorts of weird data quality problems that you wouldn't think of, or that as a marketer we might not think of because Marketo does deduping for you. Salesforce doesn't do that, so we need to put in the effort to enforce data quality right from the beginning.
Yeah, those are all really great points. It's shocking sometimes when we lift up the hood and see somebody's instance. We do find that the older the instance and the larger the instance, there's a bit more house cleaning that needs to be done. That being said, I have seen Stacy clear out insane duplicates and get instances all all aligned within record time. Just some shocking cleanup needed. Just to double click on those, so we went from a data quality point of view, we want to make sure we're identifying which fields are required. There is a balance there where too much information versus not enough information. Essentially, at the end of the day, we all work for sales, and we want to ensure that our sales reps are able to be external facing and they're not bogged down by SFDC as consuming their time and putting in data that perhaps may not be necessary to move the opportunity along. But at the same time, you do want to have enough information that it can be handed off and folks can see what all the necessary information they'll need. So we kind of look for that balance. You need the email piece, you need the company piece, you need the name, the lead source from a marketing point of view. But then from a business point of view, you might want to also identify what their primary cloud provider is, or use some more product specific, perhaps if there's another competitor at the table. Those types of things do pop up. And then you also said state to enable duplicate rules and just have a really good process around list scrubbing. Because automation is in place, the whole purpose of these tools is to automate as much as possible, but at the end of the day, they still do need that oversight, and there's integrity there that we look at on a regular basis to ensure that you don't have any leads without emails and such. Keep that updated. and then just the quality campaign management. And then with that, I'm going to actually push out another poll. It's our last poll. We really appreciate everybody participating. And we'd love to know if you regularly check your data quality in Salesforce and at what frequency. Is it weekly, monthly, yearly, not at all? Or perhaps you don't have the bandwidth at this moment, which is certainly understandable as we all have our hands in multiple things. Great.
Okay, and I'll just add one last thing. Whatever you decide to do in Salesforce, don't work alone. You want to make sure that you're on the same page with the other people in your company. Like Courtney said, you know, we work for sales. Don't forget about support and the people actually providing your service to your customers. You don't want to make anyone else's life more difficult. And you also don't want to surprise people by changing things that just because you need it, maybe, you know, another team needs something different. So particularly on those shared objects like contacts and accounts, you want to make sure that whatever changes you make, even if it's to improve data quality or make life easier for you, you want to make sure that you're not making life harder for someone else in your org as well. So it's a team effort keeping Salesforce clean and organized. So I think we're going to open it up now. If there's any questions, let's see if we've got anything in here yet.
I did see one midway here. Let's see. Apologize. Let me pull it open. And just as we're waiting for some other questions to come in, we really love the participation. Just sort of a summary is basically, you know, I hope we covered all the areas where marketing is able to participate and contribute to the sales org and the sales build out. We also really want to make sure everybody had a clear understanding of, you know, what is Salesforce, why we need it, how it integrates with other platforms. You know, that's the mapping there. And of course, the terminology and best practices to keep in mind as you're setting up your instance, and then maintaining that data quality and integrity. I think we did a great job there. I appreciate everything that you've brought to the table here, Stacy. Let's see. Let me find. I saw a question. Where am I not finding it? Oh, there we go. So, what are some things that I should do when buying SFDC, perhaps before they actually decide on it?
Sure. So you definitely want to have as much conversations as you can with Salesforce and with their sales reps and with some of their solutions and get demos. You can get a free trial org if you go to developer.salesforce.com. You can actually get your own instance of Salesforce for free. It only has might have 2 user licenses, but you can actually log in there and look around and change things, and it won't impact anything, and it'll expire after 30 days. So that's a great thing. If you need training about how to do things in Salesforce, Trailhead is Salesforce's free training platform. So it's a really good place to go if you want actual individual lessons on how to do certain things. And then we've also done another Bright Talk webinar, Courtney and I, about the things that you should do when you get your very first Salesforce org. So all of the things that you should turn on, all of the things that you should enable to kind of make your org set up and running correctly from the beginning. And they're good things. If you have an existing org as well, I always like to just go in and check that all those things are done. Of course, there's, I think, way more to do than we can cover in one webinar, but they're good topics to cover. It's called the Implementation Checklist, 10 Must-Dos in Every New Salesforce Org. So go ahead and check that out.
Awesome. We have another question here. So what are some next steps? That kind of actually feeds right into it. Obviously, the next steps, check out the 10 must-dos. The checklist there is really straightforward. What are some other next steps, Stacy?
So go back and check on your data quality. So run a few reports in Salesforce and see how many leads you have that are missing email address. Find your private contacts. So go through and run a report on any contacts where the account field is blank. You might need to create a custom report type to capture them, but you might be surprised what you find when you look for it in your Salesforce org. And then, if you have any questions or any other things that you need, definitely reach out to us. at EMA, and we are happy to give you some help and take a look at what you've got going on, especially if you have a marketing integration. We can see what you can optimize or what else needs to be done there.
Great, and I've been pushing out some display announcements along the way here, so you can just identify where that webinar is for the checklist. You can reach out to EMA, Expert Marketing Advisors. You can also reach out to Stacy, of course, and on her Quickly Consulting website too. And then I put our general email there too. There's alliance@expertmarketingadvisors.com. So that's a great way if you think of some questions after we close out here. I don't see any others coming in. And then just a sidebar, we're rolling out a new website today, so very excited, so keep your eye out for that. And anything else there, Stacy?
No, I think we're good. I am so excited that we get to do this. It's always fun to present with Courtney and EMA, and thank you everybody for joining and listening in.
Great, yeah, thanks so much for co-hosting with us, Stacy. You're always spot on with all your best practices and tips and tricks.
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and keep in touch.